Welcome everybody back to the channel, Scoundrels. If you're a returning gang member, nice to see you. If you are not a current Scoundrel and you would like to be, well, I'm giving you a one-time offer, only one time. Today, for the low price of absolutely free, you can click the subscribe button down below. And through the context of today's video, I will value your opinion 0.05 times more, which is a whole 5%, a whole 5% more than I would do normally. Don't know how I'm going to quantify that, but it's happening. Thanks to G2A for sponsoring the channel as well, reference link in the description below. Right, today we're going to be talking about Eve Echoes as a game. As you can see, I'm working my way right now towards an encounter mission. I had to take the long way round because perimeter was completely blocked and I could not get through for the life of me, so I've put perimeter on my block list now and I'm just taking the long way round. But the hot topic discussion in a lot of online forums for Eve Echoes has been, is Eve becoming too much like EVE Online? Is Eve Echoes going too much down the EVE Online route, and is that going to alienate people that have come to Eve Echoes for a different experience? In my experience, and this is where I would love you guys to chime in, through the context of today's discussion, I would like to hear your opinions. Whether you're an EVE Online vet that has come to Eve Echoes, whether you're a completely new EVE player and Eve Echoes is the first thing that you've ever touched of EVE, or you're an EVE Echoes beta player and you've become involved and you're sort of in the main game, or you knew what you were getting into when you came into Eve Echoes and you had a certain level of expectations. What I want to hear from you is what you expected from this game, what you want from this game, and any addition to the discussion that we have today, because I think I want to encourage everybody to talk about this rather than just flame each other, because when you go to the Reddit, you're starting to see a lot of people just like insult each other for different opinions, and I don't think that we should do that. I think we should be much more civil about how we go about discussing this. The problem, as I said before, is Eve Echoes becoming too much like EVE Online? Are they incorporating too many things that makes playing the game on a mobile device hard, you know, in terms of quality of life and kind of how the game is supposed to be played? The whole discussion arose when the warp disruptor changes came through. So if you didn't know before, there was a bug / maybe not a bug where if you engaged autopilot, it was nigh on impossible for you to be stopped when you're warp disrupting. So this actually was mainly applying to people who were doing anomalies, and if someone warped in, you just clicked the autopilot button, and then as soon as you clicked the autopilot button, you were immune to warp disruptors, as far as I've been told. But this had the knock-on effect now of when they changed it so that you could be interrupted during autopilot. It meant that obviously as you jumped through gates and as you were autopiloting through nullsec and lowsec, people have found ways to abuse that, or even, I guess, I don't know if it's abuse or just what is supposed to be intended, but now gate camping has become a thing where if you jump through a gate in certain low-sec or null-sec environments, you could have your ship killed when you're autopiloting. So the whole discussion arose when a lot of kind of native mobile players said, well, this is ruining my enjoyment of the game because travel is such a big part of the game. I don't want to have to sit there and look at my phone and check for every single time that I could be getting, you know, ganked at a gate when I'm in autopilot. And a lot of I think the more hardcore players basically said, well, this is part of the game. If you're going through nullsec, you have to be aware that, you know, everything is dangerous and it's a little bit like the Wild West. And if you get killed in nullsec at a gate, that is completely your fault. So those are the two kind of the viewpoints when it came to it, but it's kind of extended the discussion a little bit further. It's kind of put the discussion to a point where people are asking, all right, where do we stop in terms of turning Eve Echoes into EVE Online? Like when warp bubbles come out, if there's no bookmarks, and even with the fact that it's a little bit harder to navigate, I think in general on Eve Echoes, like are warp bubbles going to sort of ruin the enjoyment of the casual player? And that's kind of also where we have to kind of have that discussion. You know, is Eve Echoes meant for a casual audience, or is it meant to cater to the types of players that would be interested in EVE Online? You know, I can give you my personal opinion. You know, my personal opinion is that I think Eve Echoes is one of the best mobile games I've played in terms of depth and quality of product, right? I think it's an incredibly good product. But I had hoped that, given that I never really got into EVE Online properly, I always found EVE Online a little too complicated. I wanted Eve Echoes to be the more diluted version. I want Eve Echoes to be a more mobile-friendly version, because I have been involved in many mobile games across my kind of content creation career, and I can tell you the mobile games that are catered to the casual audience almost always do better on a widespread scale than the mobile games that are not catered to the casual audience. Eve Echoes already is a relatively difficult game to get to grips with. It's much easier in terms of skill tree and skills and everything like that than Eve Online is. But even so, it is a fairly complex game to wrap your head around as someone that has never had Eve Online or Eve Echoes experience before. I'm lucky in the sense that I've had the experience of games like this before, as well as some Eve Online experience, and I kind of knew what I was getting into when I came into the beta. But for someone that's come from an advertisement and has had no idea what Eve Echoes was about, it can be a pretty complex game to get to grips with. And if you're not willing to go out there and search for tutorial content from the likes of Captain Benzie, Geeka Forte, Rev Juice, myself, you're probably not... It's a steep learning curve, basically. It's a little bit difficult to get to grips with by yourself. And furthermore, like, this is primarily designed as a mobile game. And so I think, to a certain extent, we have to give allowances to mobile gaming culture, especially a game that requires you to be active on the game for long periods of time. This is not like Clash Royale, where you can play a 5-minute game and boom, you're done. You can play a couple of 5-minute games and that's your daily intake of your game. If you really want to enjoy Eve Echoes, there are things that take hours of engagement, you know, and actually, as you can see, I started this video at 29 jumps. We've gone 10 jumps in around 6 or 7 minutes. For me to make a 30 jump travel, it's going to take in the realms of 15 to 20 minutes of just having my phone active. A lot of people like to close the app and autopilot offline. You know, that now is kind of, at least in the back of your head, that is kind of in jeopardy with the fact that this autopiloting stuff has kind of been tampered or at least changed, in the sense that now it's no longer safe. And people have found ways to abuse even the low-sec gates, where they're able to draw aggro from the gate guns at 100 kilometers plus, and then they'll stay on that target, and then as soon as you jump through to a low-sec gate, the other people will kind of grab you for a warp disruptor. So, you know, I think for the most part, 95% of people are probably going to still be able to autopilot and never get affected by people going for gate ganks. But there are a lot of people that are now either aware of it and are scared, or have had it happen to them in general. And that kind of ruins the idea of kind of like AFK autopiloting. You know, they specifically made it so that you were able to autopilot offline to be more friendly to mobile users in general. And then they kind of did this, which has pushed it back the other way. There is definitely a school of thought that would say, if you are looking to be in nullsec, you should be aware that nullsec is going to have very, very high danger. But I also am of the opinion that if you are playing a game and you're subscribing to it, for instance, you know, this is a subscription model, if you're getting involved, you should have access to the full scope of the game. And especially, it should be I'm not saying it has to be absolutely like 100% super mobile friendly, like you can get everything that you want from a 35 to 45 minute play session, right? I think, you know, you should be willing, if you're really taking this game seriously, you should be willing to commit the relative time to it. But I do think you should make allowances to allow those people that are playing the game the ability to access and all the content without the extra barriers, and that's the problem. I think nullsec is definitely dangerous, and I think nullsec should be dangerous. There should be PvP, there should be open warfare, there should be pirates and dangers, but I think also you should make allowances for people to experience that without ever, you know, especially when it comes to the autopiloting and the gate ganks, where some people are going to try and get into nullsec to experience the content, but they're never going to get there because they're going to get stopped while they're traveling, and that's something, you know, people just won't know how to play around it correctly. You know, there are things in this game that require you to be invested, like in a corp. You know, if you're never going to experience the full length of this game if you're not involved in the corp, for instance. You know, that's just a fact of Eve. Like, if you're not involved in the corp, you're never going to get access to corp warfare, big fights, fully fledged manufacturing industries. You know, and at some point, the mindless grinding of ISK just to get bigger ships and better components is going to wear itself thin, because all you're doing is doing it to kill PvE anomalies more quickly, and you're never going to be able to fully experience what it's like to go into a full corp battle where all that grinding either pays off or you lose it and you have to start from scratch, right? It's kind of the point of EVE. So yeah, there are definitely arguments for and against it, but I'm definitely of the opinion that for a mobile game to be successful, and trust me, anybody that has known me from Vainglory will know that you can make a game that is insanely complex and really high quality, but if it doesn't have the widespread appeal, it eventually dies. And that's what happened to Vainglory. Like, Vainglory just didn't have the widespread appeal. It was a game that attracted a very hardcore audience on a mobile platform, and it was a great game, beautifully designed, great graphics, the control system was fantastic, but it just didn't have the widespread appeal. You could chalk it down to advertising, but realistically, more people were willing to play the casual version Mobile Legends than the hardcore version Vainglory, and eventually the user base was just not there to sustain the company. And, especially with this is even more prevalent in EVE Online, or EVE Echoes, in the sense that with a subscription user base, you need a large user base to sustain a subscription model. This is not something that you're going to see whales spend a load of money on unless they're trying to get a load of plex for ISK. Obviously, that can be the case, but, for instance, you're never going to see someone buying every skin in the game. It's probably just not going to happen, just because of the context of this game in general. So when you're primarily running your monetary income on a subscription base, you need a large user base, and to have a large user base on the mobile platform, you really need to have a balance, at least, between catering for casual players and catering for those that are more engaged. And yeah, that's my personal opinion on the whole subject. And that's where I think I'd love to hear your guys' experiences. Like, I came into EVE Echoes as someone that knew what I was getting into. I was fully prepared to spend a few hours on the game to sort of enjoy the content every day. I knew the dangers of nullsec. I was ready to join a corporation to experience, the sort of the lengths of the game had to offer. I have friends that play it, so I can experience fleets and kind of playing together in that sense. So I knew exactly what was on the cards, and I knew how to go about enjoying the game. But obviously, as a new player, that's not always possible. And when I looked at the roadmap, a lot of the roadmap items coming out were to cater specifically for the more engaged EVE Online type player. And and also I know a lot of people that came into this game from EVE Online where they were basically looking for a version that required less of their time. Where they could experience a similar level of content or a similar level of gameplay, but just didn't need to commit the hours and hours and hours that you needed to be really engaged with EVE Online, because they now have kids, they have families, they have other commitments, just like myself. And that's kind of what I hoped. I wanted to be able to do that. Even though I can spend more time than the average person on this because I create content on it, it was definitely a game that I was hoping wouldn't require the same level of insane commitment that EVE Online did, and therefore I was hoping for allowances to be more friendly to a sort of a casual mobile audience. But I think that is just a discussion that I wanted to open up today, and a discussion that I wanted people to be involved with. So what I'd really like to happen is I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. Like, do you think it's in a good place? Do you think that it needs to be more casual? Do you think it needs to be more hardcore? And I think, if you're not willing to contribute a comment, make sure you go and read some of the other comments and maybe upvote or kind of like comment on ones that you particularly agree with. I don't want my opinion to influence you, by the way. This is just how I see the game and how I would like it to be, but I know there are other content creators that would prefer more hardcore. I mean, I'd love to hear what like Benzi says on the situation, because I know that he's someone that really values the complexity and the sort of the high level attention to detail. I don't know whether he agrees with me on it needing to be more casual, for instance. But regardless, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. So if you're interested in getting involved in the conversation, please do. Please comment down below. Please let me know what you think, and I'll join you in discussion as well. There's no right or wrong answer to this, by the way, and I don't want there to be the Care Bears debate that you're getting on Reddit. There is no right or wrong answer. It's how everyone wishes the game to be enjoyed themselves. And that's essentially the end of it. Anyway, yeah, that's the whole video. we're just having a discussion while I'm jumping to an encounter which I still haven't got to yet, by the way. All right, guys, I'll see you soon.